What got you into game dev? Oh, that's a cool. Okay, that's a cool question. What got me into game dev? This is actually something I was thinking about yesterday. I guess it's not really game dev I'm into, as a matter of fact. It's more about, like I was talking about earlier. I want to build an escape. And it just happens to take the form of a game right now. It doesn't have to be, though. I think I would still be as fulfilled doing like a comic or a novel or an album, as long as it's part of that universe, like that. I don't know what word to use. I think the closest word I've managed to find is a paracosm, but I don't know if that's a bit too big of a word for what I am imagining. I'll show you the definition for those who are curious. So a paracosm is a detailed imaginary world, in the sense that, Middle Earth is J.R. Tolkien's paracosm sort of thing. Except mine is probably not as detailed as Lord of the Rings. But essentially, what actually drives me is my own little paracosm. I want to express that in some form, and I've just happened to choose games because I think games are cool. But it could really be anything. I would like to do a comic someday. I've done comics like when I was a kid, like really bad ones, and that was really fun because it wasn't the craft itself that made it fun. It was the fact that it was building this world, and that's what I'm into. And that's why I think I have all these weird interests, like not just game programming, but also art and drawing, because that to me is also connected to that. Like if I draw a character, that's why I would draw so much back then. It's because it's all linked to that, and that's what drives me a lot. So, but for game dev specifically, I think I kind of got into game dev a bit late, to be honest. Most of my friends growing up, like from the ages of 6, had like a PS2, and I'd always be at their house playing it. I didn't get my own console till a bit older. Now that I think about it, it isn't too much older, but it felt way much of a delay back then. I think I was like 9. All of my other friends though were like 6 or 5, so it felt like I felt like I was delayed by a huge amount. But yeah, my first console was a PS3. I think I got it at launch. It was a launch model. I remember begging my dad for a PS2, and he's like, nah, even better, because he like Googled it, and he's like, the PS3 is going to come out in like a few weeks. It's like, we should probably do that. And I was like, kind of like, but I want a PS2, because there was this one specific game I wanted to play, and it was Lego Star Wars, of course. But then I think it was backwards compatible, the launched PS3 model. So I said, yeah, sure, PS3, let's go. And the first games we got for it were Sonic 06 and Rayman 3. And those are still like some of my favorite games to this day. And I got really attached to Sonic. Like I was one of those Sonic fanboy kids. I was like semi-classic Sonic fan when I was 10. I was really into it. I'm trying to think of why I liked it. I think one of the reasons why I liked Sonic so much is because 06 was an interesting game, because in Sonic 06 he's in a human world and he's surrounded by other people that look realistic, but he's just this blue hedgehog guy, and I thought something about that was so cool. I felt like I wanted that to be real, like I wanted a real Sonic in this world sort of thing, because Sonic was such a cool character, and I liked that idea of him being this one-of-a-kind guy in Soliana. I think that's the name of the city in that game, Soliana. Yeah, just and you have the town missions, you run around as Sonic, and you see all these ordinary people around you, and then there's you, and you're like this cool hedgehog, and I just thought that was so cool. And the story, as criticized as it is, I thought it was pretty epic, like for a 10-year-old. I thought it was awesome. It had like the interweaving plots, it had 3 different stories that all intertwined into each other. Even if they didn't age well and they're not that well executed, I thought in practice, like in concept, I thought it was really cool. And the mechanics were fun, and I really got attached to it. And then it led me into other games like Ratchet and Clank and that sort of thing. I got attached to those games for a long time, and like by the age of how old? Like when I was like 14, I was still playing those games, and all of my other friends had moved on to like Call of Duty. and I was still playing like Sonic, Lego Star Wars, all that stuff. And yeah, I think then one day I was about 12 roughly, or 11. I might have been 11 actually, and I was really into those games. I would spend my weekends playing them, and then I thought, I want to make my own because I like this thing, and I want to make my own version with my own characters. And at that point, I had already made up the design for Gabby. I'll see if I can find the... I've shown this before a few times. I want to see if I can find the old picture of Gabby from 2009. I'll see if I can find it. Give me a second. Because, yeah, I already had her as a character in my head, and I was like... I think I had a few other characters, though, as well, and I was kind of more paying attention to them. But this is like 2009 Gabby. Right here. And, it wasn't necessarily the character itself at that point that motivated me to want to make my own game, but it was the universe that Gabby belonged to. It was the fact that I had this world in my head where she was one of the characters. I had a few others as well that I was a bit more... I haven't really paid attention to them of recent years, but I paid a lot of attention to them back then. Other sort of anthropomorphic sort of characters based on like Ratchet and Clank and stuff. And I wanted to build my own game with those characters in that world. And I started learning. I started with Unity back in 2009 or 10. And I just started with the basics. I got a sphere moving, and it was the best day of my life when I typed in if get key W, move forward, add force forward. Like when I got that working, it was the proudest moment ever. And I remember like just looking at the sphere moving, and I was like looking at my hands moving the keys and watching the sphere move, and I'm like, oh, I could do this. Like this, I'm getting like I could actually make this. Like I could make a game. It just had that moment where I was like, I could realize this vision. Of course, I was still way off at that point. I was still inexperienced, but I'm glad I stuck with it because now it's been like over 10 years, and I'm glad I still care about it because it's actually really fun. So yeah, I guess that's sort of how I got into it, just because I was interested in bringing this world to life, and I just happened to like games at the time. And games is cool because it mixes so many other mediums, and I like all of them as well. Like it mixes art and programming, and I didn't know I liked programming until I tried it, but I do like it because it's problem solving, and I like problem solving because it's just how I am. And it was just engaging. Like, and I liked the fact that I could try building this sort of world. In any form. Again, it didn't have to be a game, but it just happens that that's the medium I indulge in the most. I don't spend a lot of my time watching stuff. I was playing stuff, especially back in those days. So yeah, I guess it was just a mix of my interests and getting inspired, and that's sort of led to this. And yeah, it's really cool. It's just so crazy when I look back at it now, because I never dreamed I would still actually be working with this character even. I thought I would have abandoned her at some point, but Gabby's still with me. So